Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of Parenthood. I'm your host, Neha, and this is a space for real parents and real stories. Today's conversation sits in the early, fragile, beautiful space of new parenthood. My guest today is Natasha Verdi, or Tasha, as most people know her. She is self employed, works as a consultant, and became a mother very recently to a baby girl, Simrat. This episode is about new beginnings, about instinct, about learning on the job, about what it means to become parents together without a script but with a lot of intention. Tasha, thank you for being here, especially in this season of life.
Thank you for having me, Neha. That was so beautiful. Thank you for the introduction. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to speak about motherhood and
Yeah.
yeah, take some probably, exchange notes. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm really, when you first approached me, I was like, I'm so new to motherhood, right? Like my baby is just a year old.
Yeah.
And I still feel like, I still remember the first day that we got her home, and there's nothing much that has changed, I'm still learning. So, I was like, what could I, contribute, or what can I share? But I realized every mother's journey has something that we can take
Yeah.
away from. And I
Yeah.
think it's more of the challenges that,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But before we speak about motherhood, if you had to describe yourself right now in this phase of life, not
Okay.
you, not who you were before motherhood, not who you think you should be, what are some of the words, three words maybe, or phrases that come to mind?
So, yeah, there's a value recalibration that happens, like, after motherhood. Like, I could see that clearly. But one word that has not changed and stayed before, and even in this season of life, is ambitious. I've always been ambitious, like, and it's with my career, my goals, my life, my fitness, like, every aspect of my life. I'm ambitious. I have really audacious and outrageous goals, and for the most part, thankfully, I've been successful. If I have an idea, I just go for it, like
Yeah.
dive head on. There's no two ways about it. I'm a doer. So ambitious is outrageously ambitious, I would say. And early on in motherhood, that was what was missing. Like when
Yeah.
I was, the postpartum, when your entire identity is questioned. You look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, who is this person? And I couldn't recognize myself. I was like, what have I become? Who am I? Those questions about that, I think everybody goes through
Mm.
during that season, the postpartum period. And for me to remember who I am, to be a better mother, I had to go back to a few aspects of my life and say, this is something who is me.
Yeah.
And the moment I started getting back, talking about goals, talking about ambitions, talking about uh, the future, what I want to do, what I want to achieve, you know I turn up as a better parent to my
Wow.
daughter.
Wow. Hmm.
So yeah, ambitious is the first word. And the second is uh, gratitude or gratefulness.
Hmm.
So I think, like we train in fitness, I think gratitude is something that I train myself like a muscle every day. And so over the years, I've realized that if so, I think a lot in structures, systems. I want to be efficient. I want to, make the most of my day. I have these to-do lists, and it's just a personality, and it's not like, I like doing things like that. Like even the smallest chores at home. It's not only in my profession.
Yeah.
So I remember I'm always looking for frameworks. I'm always looking for some sort of, some, you give me some framework that I can fit in, to
Mm,
make my life easier, or
yeah.
some sort of a tool, resource. And, I'm always looking in with that mindset. So I remember when I used to have bad days, I'm like, how can I change how I'm feeling?
Yeah.
What is the easiest way that will flip the script for me?
Yeah.
And over the years, over a decade, I've realized it's gratitude.
Mm,
So when I'm having the a very bad day, like I can't go from a 0 to 100, but I can come at a neutral space. And even if
wow.
I'm on a 30,
Mm,
I'm good. So I start off very small, because when you're not having a good day, you don't, everything is dark.
yeah.
So I start with some things that I'm grateful for in that moment, like a phone, laptop, things that you can't live without, your family, and build on that. Most days I make it through the day, but some days it's like, yeah, I'm so grateful that it just, it's like, it's like a high, when I'm really very happy and grateful, and I just have more things to add on.
Yeah.
It's another feeling altogether. So I catch these feelings of gratitude. It's a
Mm,
conscious effort. That's why it's like a muscle I have to keep training.
yeah.
So yeah, second word is gratitude or gratefulness, and the third one is again, reflective.
Mm,
So I journal. I think both of them are pretty similar. Um, like not similar. I would say like I am. I take stock of what's happening in my life, or how I behaved, or how I acted in a situation. How did I respond? How did I react? So uh, I reflect. I journal, and a lot of things that I look at, it gives me a space to be gentle with myself when I
yeah.
reflect. It's
Yeah.
like I literally try and step out of myself and see, to 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 deal with shame, to deal with embarrassment, to deal with anger, um, to deal with the self-worth that we all go through.
Yeah.
And just, I would say, to be gentle with myself. But I think that reflective practice, na, I try and use it every way to
Mm,
see something deeper. Like if somebody's sharing a story, or if in my work, if we are working on something, I would want to see the reflection behind it. What happens? Look at all sides. Look
yeah.
at it with a softer gaze.
Mm.
So it's effort every day. So
I'm
yeah, so
sure
these are the
it sounds so like hard.
it
Yeah.
is it is it is very hard, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But I think, see, these are all complementary for me. The like
Yeah.
if I don't journal, or if I don't practice gratitude, then I don't see myself ambitious because my energy is low.
Yeah.
And so in a way, it's like if I want to be ambitious, I have to do these things. So it's like, uh, you have to have all of it. So, and a lot of time I might sound very spiritual and all that, and I've always been like disassociating myself from that. I am not spiritual. I am just reflective. A
Yeah.
lot of people, they will like, they make fun of me, and they're like, oh, you talk like this Gyani Baba and all. I'm like, no, if you actually look at the way I'm wired, I'm literally trying to take practices that will make me more efficient, will make my life easier. It's all
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, so these are the three words.
But beautiful, beautiful. It's just such a beautiful start to our conversation. And before we go any further, I'd love for you to introduce us to your little universe, your partner, your baby, and what your home feels like these days.
Okay. Yeah, for the most part of my life, I never wanted to get married, and children was nowhere in sight. Like there are people who know me and be like, married child, like they just cannot even imagine me like that. Being a mother, and because I've been a gypsy, if that's the word. Now I've
Hmm.
lived very fiercely independent.
Hmm.
I would uh, I was raised by a single parent.
Hmm.
My mom, she raised 5 kids on her own.
Wow.
Yeah. And she did not have any support system like how we, and so a lot of my journey into motherhood was looking, unlearning a lot of things that I've thought and seen about motherhood.
Right.
But going back to my partner, my family, and how did it all start? So I just did not want to get married, but there are some things that I really had a vision for. Like I love big families,
Hmm.
and we are 5 of us. So growing up, we never really needed friends, honestly. So we
Yeah.
would wrestle, we would fight, and so that like 5 of us. Now we are in different places, different parts of the world. And today, when I sit and I just reflect, I'm like, it's so difficult for us to schedule something together, for us to
Yeah.
come together.
Yeah.
And for me, this is still like a heartbreaking point.
Hmm.
And so it happened randomly. Like I was just working, and we had a work conversation, me and my partner, and then it just escalated into something else. And the next moment, I know we are talking about marriage. And I was like, oh, what is happening? It's happening so quickly. So we had like we courted for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so one of the reasons that we took it forward was both of us had our value system was aligned in terms of like family was very critical for us.
Hmm.
Like I wanted to live in a big family. I
Hmm.
wanted a lot of people around me. I did
Hmm.
not want to live in isolation. I did not want to be like, just a nuclear family. So
Yeah.
this is something that very early on um, I realized in, before getting married. And the second part was I wanted to live in a smaller town.
Hmm.
I did not want uh, to live in a big city. So, quite honestly, now while I'm reflecting, I'm like, it was very strategically love. There was like a strategic love. Like, we both were like, okay, these are what you want. I'm like, yeah, this is what I want. This is what. So, but I think I would say, he's very grounded. Like
Hmm.
I might sound grounded, but I am not grounded. I'm all over the place all the time, and it takes me a lot of effort, like I said, to
Hmm.
compose myself and to be presentable, because I am no filter person. And
Hmm.
uh, but he's not like that.
Hmm.
I if I'm planning something, I am doing more than planning.
Yeah.
And he is planning, and I get so irritated with it. I'm like, do. He's like, you do your stuff. Don't tell me what to do. You do. So we have an easy relationship, but
Hmm.
for the most part, I think he has learned a lot, and I have learned a lot about um, sensitive things, like if we talk about gender roles,
Hmm.
the assumed roles,
Hmm.
and a lot of it has been unlearning and learning. And
Hmm.
in the beginning, there was a lot of rage, like after I became a mother, because I was so mad at the world for making, like if you see, we wrap up the whole motherhood into poetry, which is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a beautiful experience. It's a miracle. Like, what our bodies do, there's no one can understand the depth, the pain, the power it takes to be a mother. I thought I knew my mother's journey. Like
Hmm.
honestly, I thought like I empathized with my mother. I knew, but it had. I couldn't understand it from the outside. This is what I've come to
Yeah.
the conclusion.
Yeah.
You have to be a mother to understand what it takes to be a mother. When your time, when your income, when your identity, when your sleep,
Hmm.
they are all renegotiated all at once. That's when you'll know what. And the early childhood care days,
Yeah.
the early days of child rearing,
Hmm.
oh my god, it's like it just it's something else. It's, you have to experience it.
Yeah.
So that's where, a bit of empathy stepped in for my partner, because I would be like, again, reflect and see, like, as a woman, as someone who would consider herself connected to my mother, to understand her journey, I was like, I literally, the entire uh, the narrative around my mother has changed so much.
Hmm.
Like, if you see, if you have to describe your mother in a few words, I did a reflection activity, and I keep doing these reflection workshops and, micro, small circles.
Hmm.
Sorry. So in one of the activities, it is just participant led. There's no conclusion out of it. It's just, trying to bring out your own thoughts and probably
Yeah.
unconscious biases. So it started with my own reflection, wherein I realized that the words that I used to describe my mother were like, strength, sacrifice,
Hmm.
foundation, and then resilience, courage, brave. And now, after I became a mother, I would look at her and I would say, imagine the cost that came at.
Yeah.
Imagine, where is the woman
Yeah.
that she was before she became a mother?
Yeah.
And now I see her, and she's a different person.
Hmm.
She is like traveling. She travels more than any of us.
Hmm.
She doesn't need anyone to book her a cab or do anything.
Hmm.
She is independent. She is living her life. And when I ask her about, how was it parenting us, she doesn't have memory of it.
Yeah.
She doesn't have good memories of it.
Yeah.
And she doesn't talk of it also all that much. It's just like, I can imagine the amount of um, stress it took her to raise the five of us. So this is one, one such activity that I conduct, like facilitate. So if you, like, we need to change the way we see this narrative, because now, before becoming a mother, I would glorify my mother.
Yeah.
Like, literally, I would be like, oh, she is this iron woman, like, this lady of steel. But now I don't look at it like that. I'm like, why did she have to be that way?
Yeah.
Where is the support?
Yeah.
Where is the infrastructure? Where is a system? So these are the questions that I began asking very early on. So sorry, we are again all over the
No, no,
place.
no, no, no.
This
But
is
this
the
is what we want.
personality
This is
flaw.
what we want. I think it brings such richness to the conversation, going all over the place. So I'm all for it.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, so my partner and me, we are very alike yet different.
Mm-hmm.
And our parenting styles are also very different. He's all playful, and again, I am like efficient. Change the diaper, change the clothes, get done with the things, and then there's more tasks to do. And for him, it's all about play, and a lot of people admire that about their partners and all. And I'm like, no, let's finish it quickly. So in fact, last night, like, we had a rough night, and in the morning, so my daughter, she's a light sleeper. She's been a troublemaker since day one. I don't know, like, people who have children who sleep and children who don't sleep are living different lives. So
Yes.
my life has been like I call her a little dragon because she is a dragon and she spits fire throughout the day. I love her and I love that about her. But oh my God, the I don't know, are all children this way these days? It looks like it because, I don't know what kind of children are coming into the world because, gosh, at 1 year, she is she's so like, yeah, demanding and dictatorish and all is is like, part of being a toddler. But I think these days kids are something else.
Yeah.
I was saying that there's like in the morning. So what happens is each time my daughter sees my partner, her father, she's awakened. She's completely up, and she's like, "Papa, Papa, Papa," in her high pitched voice. And I tell my partner, you don't even make eye contact. I don't want you to be in the room. I will take care of her, especially if something is important. Because, and I'm so glad she does papa, papa, papa all day.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, I don't want that mama, mama, mama. And he's happy about it. But she is such a papa's girl already. But in that moment, he's very playful. And, he wants to play with her and all that. And I'm like, not at this time. It's 3, it's 4, it's 5. Go to sleep. Yeah. So it's fun. It's fun. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of empathy for each other, and there it's not um, like I'm saying. They are rough days. There are
Yeah.
rough days, no doubt. But I think it's after those rough days how we, try and communicate. So I'm not someone who likes to communicate. I am the one who puts everything under the rug. I
Mm.
don't want confrontation. I don't want, and my husband loves to communicate.
Mm.
So, and I was like, it's difficult because I'm not used to addressing anything. I'm like, it will go away on its own.
Yeah.
Things will just disappear. It's okay. We don't have to. But then he's like, if I don't bring this up now, after 2 weeks, you're going to suddenly remember, you know. So I'm like, you can't help it. It's the cycle of a woman,
Yeah.
you. Yeah. So I think for the most part, we are very happy
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, we keep that inner child alive, like we are pranking each other and stuff. And my daughter is like really beautiful, and she's growing up with two people who don't know what they are doing. But yeah, we have support. Like I live with my in-laws, and then I have my husband's elder brother, his wife, his two kids.
Wow.
So yeah, so we have a lot of kids in the house. We have a lot of shouting and yelling as well, and so it's nice. Yeah, it's nice. So yep,
Yeah.
this a little bit.
Tell me what has surprised you the most about Inder as a father?
That he's always right. Like and like so he is the planner, everything, and I get like, when, especially if there's a deadline or something, I get um, anxious,
Hmm.
because for me it's more about completing something, and
Yeah.
I want to do it right. And so with for instance, 2 days back we had to attend a function, and so it was an open area. So I my partner was not coming. It was me and the kids and my sister-in-law and all of us going. And he tells me take a jacket for my daughter, and I'm like, she's wearing a thermal, she's wearing she's wearing I've taken a mini blanket and everything. So we had to park almost half a kilometer away,
Oh, wow.
and I didn't carry the jacket, and in between I could see my daughter shivering, and I'm like, oh my God. And he told me thrice, and then he understands that, after this it's going to be like like a push, and I will not like it. So he's like, and then I came home, and the first thing I said is I should have carried a jacket. And it's not only this, it's like she's cranky, and he'll tell me check her diaper. I'm like, no, I just changed it. He'll be like, check, and I'll be like, no. And I don't know why does this happen to me. Every time I try and say that no, you are wrong, he turns out to be right. But what surprised me is how hands on he is.
Hmm.
Like, and he comes, he's like attentive to the smaller details that I tend to forget, or we complement each other that way. But I didn't expect him to be so hands on as a parent. So he
Yeah.
tells me, because he has a niece and a nephew before, so he has that experience, and sometimes he tells me I am the mother in this relationship. Just that I am not breastfeeding the
Happy,
baby, but
happy to pass on that baton to you.
yeah. Yeah. And then yeah, so I'm happy about it. For the most part, it pleasantly surprises me, like the way he steps up. And I don't I just tell him that, although it's like I tell him to do something, but I know he's going to sing a song, and he's going to make it all very easy for Simrat. So I
Yeah.
think that surprises me, and he teaches me every day to be a
Wow.
better mother.
Wow. Wow. And,
Yeah.
and and are there moments when you found yourself pausing and thinking, oh, okay, this is what a true partnership looks like?
I always tell him there's still more work to be done. Yeah, they are like, obviously, yeah, there are moments where I feel like, when I feel so grateful. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's a thing about everyone laughing and so many people around. We are playing games. We have like a ritual of playing cricket on Sundays. Like, kids are with their dadu. So I think it is something about the environment and the laughter and everything. No? It's all the elements together
Yeah.
that, it's like I'm living a dream, because this is something I always
Oh,
wanted.
yeah.
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 So in those moments, I think it's all somewhere like it's yeah, and I feel more grateful that he's brought in such beautiful people into my life. And yeah, I think as a partner, he is very supportive.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't give him enough credit, and now I don't want to give him enough credit too. But yeah, he knows that. He knows that
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
yeah,
And let's talk about the journey into parenthood. You said you didn't want to, kind
yeah.
of bring in children into this world through you. How did becoming a parent actually begin for you?
So I think most of what has happened is like I've seen my mommy's journey.
Mm-hmm.
So you tend to there are parts of you that uh, uh, because of what I have seen, and because of how I've interpreted it, then I have made like a statement that I held so closely that it became a belief
Hmm.
that marriage is not for me.
Hmm.
Because and then a lot of I did not have a lot of good role models either, in terms of marriage and parenthood,
Yeah.
growing up. And even those who were happily married, on the surface it did not seem that way.
Yeah.
So uh, so all through I kept saying the same thing. I internalized it, I made it my belief system. And then when I met my partner, uh, they are these, it I remember journaling about it, like, what did you want when you were pure innocence, like when you did not when you were not touched by the judgments of the world.
Yeah.
So I remember going back, like I had this vision, like I wanted a family. It was very
Yeah.
clear. I wanted a big family. I wanted you know, like Sunday lunches together, meals together. Like this was very set in my mind. But
Yeah.
over a period, like, with, as you get more informed about the world, about what's happening around, with the kind of people you encounter, you keep piling on you keep shaping your belief systems and eventually your decisions.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of what I believed was under the garb of fear,
Yeah.
probably fear, or just just like a protective shield that
Yeah.
you don't want to.
Yeah.
And then once I got married, and once I realized that, yeah, this is it. This is what I wanted. I don't want, this is a family I want. And then there was no thought of a second guess at all, because it was like, yeah, I'm going to have a kid. It was like, uh, it was written like, okay, I'm married. I knew I'm going to have a kid. Like there was,
Yeah.
it was actually the marriage that was the barrier, I would say, in my thinking to
Mm.
having a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also it impacted me, like what kind of an environment I'm going to get my child into,
Absolutely. Yeah.
what kind of a parent I'm going to be. I made I actually asked myself these questions. I battled with them for the most part, and I think I made a good decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I would
Yeah,
say so. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And your pregnancy and birth experience included an elective C-section because of a breech baby. Was there a decision-making process involved, or was it, like how was that for you?
This is actually interesting, because see, I am observant about my body. So I knew the moment I skipped my period, I knew, like, something's like some changes are happening.
Yeah.
Like in a week after a skip period, I knew I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And all my checkups were here in Jagdalpur.
Yeah.
So I'll get to the decision making thing a little
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
So I remember, like, because my sister-in-law, she had a baby. She has two kids. 6 years back, she had her son.
Yeah.
So there's a gap in 6 years, and her narrative was, her experience, sorry, was different,
Yeah.
because in these years, so much has changed. Then my best friend, she had her baby 2.5, 2 years back.
Mm.
So it was closer. So I was relying on their wisdom, to understand what is happening. So when I began visiting the doctor, uh, it was it was shocking, because you imagine yourself going into a cabin,
Mm.
speaking, privacy. But here in a small town, there's nothing like that. You have 10 people already. There's one in the same cabin. You have your ultrasound happening in front of people. You have your prescription being written. You are questioned in front of so many people.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, it was weird, like, and then I would, there would be patients who'd come and ask such intimate questions, and it was answered in open.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, like, should I really have a baby here? But I'm going to live here, so I can't help it. And there are only two. It's like duopoly. There's only two big hospitals that are well known for providing for birth. And so I think until the eighth month, everything was fine
Mm.
in terms of my checkup and my vitals and whatever. I think in the eighth month, I had high blood pressure issues.
Mm. Mm.
And I remember my gynae telling me that, okay, so your baby, your high blood pressure, make sure you bring it down. And because we'll go in for a C-section if you have high blood pressure.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay. Then the next following week, the baby was breech.
Hmm.
So she was happy about it. She's like, we are going for a C-section very happily. I'm like, why would you say that? Like, why is it a happy thing? Because my mama is pro natural birth.
Hmm.
My mommy is like, no, like, and on the other hand, my mother-in-law, when we're talking about what C-section or a natural birth or a vaginal birth or what, she is like, सी सेक्शन ही होना है यहाँ पे तो सी सेक्शन के अलावा कुछ नहीं करते हैं सो इट्स she had C-sections, my mother-in-law. My sister-in-law, she had six C-sections. So what I've come to understand, my best friend, she told me like she when she entered her 40th week, she was induced with labor pains because she was so um, she wanted to give birth naturally.
Right.
And it went to such a point that she had to make a choice immediately and she had to go in for an emergency C-section
Oh.
because the time had, yeah, so her baby had to be admitted in intensive care. So because she had this entire idea influenced by her friend, like
Right.
nothing is better than natural birth. And then she cut it short and she told me, just plan your C-section and you don't have to go through a natural birth. Because now so I've realized that there's a lot of judgment around a C-section birth and how it is the easy way out. So I want to say that it's an easy way out for the doctor or
Right.
the person who's operating. It's an easy way out for them because it's very controlled.
Hmm.
They can in a natural birth, you don't know what complications can arise, especially if you have high blood pressure
Yeah.
or if you have some any other issues with your health. So you need a seasoned experienced professional who you can trust your life with, literally.
Yeah.
So that's why I realized that she was pushing for C-section,
Hmm.
and she was like, this is a easy way out.
Hmm.
The experience was such that it's very vivid. Like I can still imagine the colors of the curtain, the rooms, and
Yeah.
uh, I, I've been prepared. My friend had given me like without sugar coating. She told me so and so. They will tie your hands. They will, she literally gave me the worst picture, and she told me because that's how I want to be prepared. So she's like, have this at the back of your mind,
Hmm.
and I expected the worst.
Hmm.
And even though I thought I was prepared, I was not prepared for it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like the kind of pain, the helplessness, the fact that, like, I remember because they give you anesthesia, but you can hear everything.
Yeah.
And so you have doctors talking, and you have this anesthesia, this kind lady is whispering in my ears, and then I can feel, them pulling the baby out. So all these actions are felt and
Yeah.
heard, and uh, it's it's a very different experience. It's something that I want to forget and not forget at the same time. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so it was easy. The process was easy. It was done, but after that, uh, I was like the pain, the
Yeah.
struggle, the vulnerability, because you can't. It's literally learning to walk again,
Yeah.
learning to brace yourself before a cough, before
Yeah.
sneezing, and the pain. You, I just can't believe that I went through so much of pain because I always considered myself someone uh, who can bear a lot of pain. I would think that way, and I was like, this is you can't think of something like this.
Yeah.
It's I don't even have words. Like, I'm literally lost, like, thinking of that experience. It makes you so helpless.
Yeah.
It makes you so vulnerable.
Yeah.
And in that, like, I remember, like, if we are talking so much about raising children, you need a village to raise a child. And no one talks about raising a mother.
Yeah.
Like, I remember 38 weeks I'm pregnant, full term. The next day I'm a mother.
Hmm.
How do you expect me to be a mother from day one? And
Yeah.
there is this expectation. A mother knows everything since day one.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they will contradict it and say that you will learn along the way.
Hmm.
You know? So, this part of, first off, you are uprooted. You are like the hormonal crash after the birth, after the placenta is birth, is like from 100 to 0.
Yeah.
And I read somewhere that it is menstruation plus puberty plus menopause combined, the postpartum, the baby blues that you talk about, the hormonal clash is so severe.
Yeah.
And then you're expected to feed the baby,
Yeah.
and the baby, and oh my god, breastfeeding is again,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, why, the question is like, I remember when I was recovering in those early weeks, I had written a piece which said, God is a man.
Mhm.
I was so angry, and I was like, why is it this way that, it's like I just gave birth, I'm recovering, and then you add on breastfeeding, wherein the baby has to latch, she has to learn to latch, which is another challenge in itself.
Yeah.
And then you, every 2 hours, like, how does a person function like that?
Yeah.
How does a person deal with so much of recovery, mental, physical, emotional, and then a tiny human being is completely dependent on you?
Yeah.
So I still cannot, hats off to every mother. Like,
Mm.
I, and then again, the question comes, breastfeeding has, it's, again, in a way, it's so poetically wrapped.
Yeah.
It's nice, okay, I understand, it's your bonding with your kid, but you know these are the things that are in uh, everyone's view, that
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful experience. It's it's the most, like, the way I've been conducting a few in-depth conversations as well for research mainly. And I remember even men talking like, this is a gift from
Mhm.
God that only women can
Oh,
do.
you take that gift, bhai. You take
Yeah.
that gift.
Like, I wish we could help out with breastfeeding, but God has given you this opportunity. And then there are people who again, think that being a mother is some, like, my mother loves to do it
Hmm.
because it's her way of showing love. She loves to go out of the way to make my life easier because that's what she loves to do. And for the most part, I think there's a lot of unlearning that even we as mothers have to do.
Yeah.
We have internalized so many things, like, even like, who else will do it?
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
never challenged that. Who, like, they're the um, caregiving has been feminized.
Yeah.
It has also been like, and if you see, right from very early on, as girls, it's like they prepare us for already motherhood, because you are supposed, there are certain things society tells you, and it just becomes a norm.
Yeah.
And now we are questioning a lot of these things, which is amazing. But at the same time, while we are raising children, we should be aware of this fact
Yeah.
that So I am like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and you've said that your parenting has been shaped a lot by instinct and by the unfiltered wisdom of the mothers around you.
yeah.
What does that look like in practice?
Mm. So, yeah, I think, when we say the word wisdom itself, it's like, you think about this indigenous knowledge,
Yeah,
and like passed down from generations. I've realized that a lot of elders, well meaning advice, they have never questioned it.
yeah.
They have just done it as duty.
Hmm.
Like, because my mother in law, because my mother said, do this. So, I have I would read, I would learn, I would listen, but I would try everything and then I'll make a conclusion of my own. Like when I talk about my friends who were, and I wanted to um, see, because again, if you join these communities, also you have so many people.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I was thinking like motherhood is literally like an ocean. Like
Hmm.
if you want to, the analogy if you use, because oceans are unexplored, just a fraction of it is explored, and you don't even know what to expect
Yeah.
from it. Like, motherhood is like the ocean, unpredictable, barely understood, barely explored, because no two pregnancies are the same,
Yeah.
no two mothers are the same, no two journeys are the same. We we as mothers have, there is a universal truth, no doubt.
Yeah.
There's a universal pain, there is universal pressing points, there's universal change that needs to be done, but the journeys are so different, the
Yeah.
learnings are so different.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's still so much more we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know about motherhood. We don't know why our bodies behave like this, why our emotions are like this. Yeah, now we are getting language, and we are getting information about it, we are being aware about all of this.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there's still we a lot of things we don't know.
Yeah.
So with that fact in mind, I think trust is an important factor. Like who you trust,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
from the, it's not only the message, it's also the messenger.
Yeah.
Like, the message could come from somewhere else, but if the messenger is someone I trust in, even if the message does not live somewhere, I will give it a thought.
Yeah.
So I remember, like, because me and my friend, we share a lot of similar things, and we've known each other for a decade, and I've seen her parent, I've spent time with her kids. So it was a no-brainer that, I would definitely take advice from her and ask her about her journey. And then again, my sister-in-law, she has been through this journey and right here in the same space, raising kids here. So it was again like that. You asked me if there is what was your question again? Sorry.
My question is that how does that wisdom, taking those wisdom, nuggets of wisdom looks like in practice for you?
Mm. Uh, like for so for me it was more like what was done wrong. You
Hmm.
know, you don't have to do these things.
Hmm.
Like, and a lot of things were like it's just like random, you talk and then uh, uh, it's just try, it's all trial and error, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So my friend would tell me try this, my mother-in-law would tell me try this, my sister-in-law will tell me try this, and I'll try it and I'll see if it works.
Hmm.
But I think the matter is the trust.
Yeah.
Do you trust in them enough to see if this works?
Right.
uh, like in practice, if I say, like for instance, if my child is not eating,
Hmm.
hmm, so it would be like, why don't you, like I made this mistake, I made these mistakes, I gave my child foods that were like amazing dishes, that special foods, sauces and put in my heart and soul and made amazing stuff for her to eat. And then my friend goes, don't do all that. What you eat at home, give her that.
Hmm.
You know? So this is learned out of experience.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to make a pasta sauce 10-step thing. You're not going to make special. You will do,
But
but you
once in a while,
once in a while, yeah. For the most part, your kid is going to eat what you eat at home.
yeah,
So I have been saved. Honestly, I'm very fortunate that I have, friends and relatives who have who have tried and tested many things and who are giving me a blueprint which
yeah,
says that this is what I did, and you don't try this at all. And
yeah,
it makes sense. There's a
yeah,
logic behind it.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that's why that there's a lot of things that save me time, energy, because I'm relying on their wisdom. And more than
yeah,
wisdom, it's their uh, the failures that they
yeah,
have gone through as parents.
yeah.
And so I am fortunate that way. I should say that out loud. It's a lot of my stress of feeding, initial breastfeeding and things like that was sorted out because I consulted with people I trust.
Beautiful. And let's talk about early postpartum, those very first few weeks about birth, after birth. They can, like for me, they feel like a blur. But do
Mhm.
you remember something that is like kind of most vivid from those early days with Simrat?
So I did not bond with Simrat immediately. Probably I'm saying this out for the first time because now I've seen how our relationship has grown. And,
Yeah.
earlier it would feel, uh, earlier there was, I think, I don't know if a lot of mothers can relate to this, but uh, you're recovering, you have this baby, you are trying to breastfeed them, you're trying to keep them alive and healthy. For me, it is again, it's, I would wish it were a blur because, we had a challenging time with
Hmm.
Simrat.
Hmm.
He would not sleep at all.
Hmm.
And within a month, so I remember trying to put her to sleep. So, whole night she would not sleep.
Hmm.
And then she would only sleep with her dadi through the day, and we would get some sleep.
Hmm.
And that too, she would only sleep in her godi. She would
Oh.
just sleep in my mother in law's lap. And until then, at the moment you move her, she's up. So, what, like in the beginning, it was challenging for us.
Yeah.
Uh, then, early on, within a month, we realized she had an infection.
Hmm.
We don't know how she contracted it. My best guess was like, we had a Malish lady who would come and clean her tongue, which was not necessary. We got to know later.
Yeah.
So it could be. This is my guess, but I'm like, um, we don't know how because she was completely breastfed. So then we had taken her to Sambalpur. We got her checked. We gave her antibiotics, and when we returned the third month, she was a new baby. It was like we swapped babies, literally. She, even now, she gives us a hard time with sleep. The kind, if I tell you her tactics, the way she is, I don't know what kind of a baby she is. Just to put context to that, she wants me to stand and feed her. I'm like, as the moment I sit down, she doesn't want to be fed. She wants to be she wants to be rocked. Like, I'm like, what? Why are you making it so difficult for me? I know I love challenges, but so she has these peculiarities that when I talk to. I remember me and my friend when we had met, and she was watching me change her diaper. She has two kids, and then she was like, hats off, how do you do it? Because it's a literal battle. She just can't stay still. She just cannot stay still.
Hmm.
And I give her a toy, she throws it. Like, you try to distract her. No,
Yeah.
she just doesn't want to be touched. She doesn't want to be, she just wants to have her own way.
Hmm.
At such a tiny person, like, I know babies can have boundaries, but she's another level. Like, I can't even do anything that she's not comfortable with. So I
Yeah.
have to literally, I'm like, these gentle parenting videos go over my head. I'm like, you know yeah, how gentle can you be?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, she so, yeah, it's interesting with her. But I think these are the moments I even remember now and smile back, and I know. So she, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
I love her.
And was there a moment when it, you said it was not a blur for you, but was there a moment when it really hit you that, oh God, I'm someone's mother now?
Yeah, now also have these moments, honestly. Like, when I go into a meeting, and I have a really good meeting, and I forget I have a baby. And then suddenly I like, oh, she has to eat. Like, there are many days like this, that suddenly she's with her dadi playing, and I have my time. She's with her dadu playing. And then suddenly I'm like, oh, where is Simrat? It's that realization. And I think that's amazing. Like, because
Yeah.
she has her bade papa, badi mama, she has the kids that she is. So I get that time. I feel I'm privileged. I'm
Oh, yeah.
fortunate. I have the support. I have
Yeah.
the family structure that will help cope with her, with raising her. So, yeah. So I think what a blur moment, I think, uh, the only thing that I want to highlight was during my recovery. I think I've already mentioned it. There was a lot of rage and anger
Hmm.
towards how this entire world is constructed, with how women have to go through so much in their bodies, with their time, with their energy, with their space, with their choices, with their ambition. Like, everything is negotiated time and again,
Yeah.
from the vantage point of the baby. And
Yeah.
nobody even glances as much on the mother. So I think there was this realization, and it was very hard hitting in the early days to experience that. I think,
Yeah.
yep. So
Yeah. Yeah. And how did your relationship with your own body change during this time, if at
yeah,
all?
yeah, I do. Like, so I've always been fit, I want to say.
Mm.
I'm having that second thoughts, because now I can't recognize my body
Yeah.
anymore. This uh, like, I've always been athletic,
Hmm.
and I would run. I would, like, I'm always energetic, and suddenly I find myself with aches and pains, and I can't do and move the way I used to.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big setback.
Yeah.
And then I look at myself, and I go, what has happened to me? What has happened to my face? What has happened to
Yeah.
yeah, things like that? uh, and I'm still dealing with it. I think it's a part of how your body changes, because you have the scars. And uh, I think your body never recovers from birth.
Yeah.
And because I've seen my friends, I've seen people, and they the like my I remember someone telling me that it's been over 8 years since she had a C-section, and there's the place where their stitches are still numb. She
Hmm.
doesn't feel anything.
Hmm.
I'm like, is that even normal? She's like, I don't know.
Hmm.
Like, things like that. There's some perpetual back pain for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So there are certain things the body cannot do before what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm dealing with that, hopefully, with there are good days and bad days. And the entire time, poverty, I think we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
The way your time is, yeah, I like, you want to do so many things. Like
Yeah.
as a mother, people want to do, a mother's already doing everything,
Yeah.
but everything for everyone but herself.
Yeah.
And it's always a prioritization, a negotiation of which one do you prioritize.
Yeah.
And most of the time, you prioritize everything else over your own well being.
Yeah.
And I think that is where right now I am struggling. There are good days and bad days, because I want to focus, I want to get back into doing things that I love, which is running. And, so it's just one day and many days miss. But I think that is something that I need to work on. I feel like, I
Mm.
need to nurture myself. That's why it's the mother movement, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
And
I think, yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah. Please go on.
I said, because I think mothering the mother is something we need to speak about,
Yeah.
because mothers need nurturing, they need support, they need love as well.
Yeah.
And I think the one who supports everything the most, everyone the most, is the one who has the least support. So that breaks my heart to think about it.
Yeah.
Like, what are you expected as a mother? You're expected to have these four pair of hands and five brains. And like, that's the amount of energy that our bodies utilize.
Yeah.
We are literally multitasking because we don't have any other option.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
My partner can't do more than one thing at one time.
Yeah.
But you are cooking, you're taking care of a baby, you're doing three things at a time. And you're literally making up for the extra hands that you don't have.
Yeah.
For, you are forced to multitask. Like, I
Yeah.
remember I even wrote, I was writing something about, because when you're breastfeeding, again, it's so anchoring. Like,
Yeah.
and for my baby, I have to hold her with both my hands,
Yeah.
because I'm standing and I'm feeding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do I do something else? Because you are feeding and I am stagnant.
Yeah.
I'm immobile.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why didn't, okay, God gave us breastfeeding. Why didn't you give us two pairs of hands?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think only because you're in this position, like you have no other choice.
Yeah.
You have to come up with creative and innovative ways to deal with it, because mothers are resilient, they are adaptive.
Yeah.
They will literally do anything and everything. And that's why we have these describe the words, the words we describe for our mother is like everything, like
Yeah.
almost like godlike.
Yeah.
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 And because that's what we do, we believe we don't have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is how it's done, this is
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one can do it like us.
Hmm. Hmm.
But this is not how we were. We have adapted ourselves
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
So I think I think we need to ask for support. We need to change the narrative.
Hmm.
Like, the focus has always been, as women have been going through so much. We have to flip that question.
Hmm.
Why is it that you don't support?
Hmm.
Why is it that, that's what I'm working on right now?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's at the end, like I was looking at so many, like if you take a look at the last 2 years, there's a lot of buzz around the care economy.
Yeah.
The ILO is talking, UN is talking about it, G20 mentioned about it. So they are talking about how care is infrastructure, how care, there's the framework that ILO suggested, which is the 5R framework,
Hmm.
which talks about both unpaid and paid work,
Hmm.
and it talks about how to reduce, redistribute, recognize unpaid work, and how to reward and represent paid work. So they have all these, like, there is language now.
Mm.
There is a shift. There is a shift in how organizations, how legal, like, there's a lot of shift around the care, and especially
Yeah.
unpaid care. In fact, in India, it says that unpaid care is valued at around 15 to 17% of our GDP.
Wow.
Yeah. And then if you talk about globally, around 76% of the care work is done by women.
Yeah.
So care, whether you're talking, because see, when we talk about motherhood, we're just talking about raising a baby.
Mm.
But a lot of mothers are also taking care of elders. They are
Yeah.
also taking care of homes. They are also taking care of sick children.
Yeah.
You know, so in a way, you see that this entire care work that runs, the reason why the economy is running, the reason why there's so much of people can go, people who are like men, for instance, there's so much of participation and all, because the backbone is women who are making the work happen.
Yeah.
If no one would care in the way they were doing, tomorrow the day would not go forward, like a lot of people would not turn up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is underpaid, it is invisible.
Mm.
And I remember a discussion, so very early on, my partner would be like, calm down, because I would be furious. I would have
Mm.
these debates. And
Mm.
I'm glad, now I've reached a place of empathy,
Mm.
like, because they don't go through the experience,
Yeah.
especially men and even women who choose not to, or for whatever reason. Like, even for me,
Yeah.
before I became a mother, I did
Yeah.
not know what it takes.
Yeah.
So now I come in from a point of empathy, but there was a moment of rage
Mm.
wherein I would just have a lot of debates with a lot of people.
Mm. Mm.
And there was a educated man who told me what unpaid work and why, who should pay.
Mm.
Like, the attitude around all of these things. There was another person who spoke about, like, when I was talking about the challenges of motherhood, then why marry? Why have kids? As if it's a personal choice.
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
these are some things that led me, and I'm so grateful, and I continue to have these conversations. But now I don't debate, because I want to hear them out from an empathetic view, to see that, okay, they don't realize, because as a mother, I myself, from the outside, I couldn't understand.
Yeah.
I had to literally go through that cycle of pregnancy, birth, postpartum,
Yeah.
and see how my time, how my income, how my identity, all of this, sleep,
Mm.
how it had to completely be changed upside down
Yeah.
for me to understand, and to be able to articulate this.
Yeah.
So, and now I go in with empathy, but I think a lot of, like, if you look at every mother's life, there is a paid work and there is unpaid labor as well,
Yeah.
that precedes the day,
Yeah. Yeah.
or that, after after a tiresome day at work, and then you come back and you do the same chores,
Yeah.
then you're taking care of, like, i'm I'm like, how is this physically possible?
Mm.
And why is this physically possible?
Mm.
Why should it be like that?
Mm.
So you question not the mother, because the mother is adapting. You
Yeah.
question the partner.
Yeah.
You question the other gender.
Mm.
You make them aware. You question the system. You
Mm.
question now, for instance. So my work right now, it's evolving.
Mm.
I'm still trying to, there is language. I'm trying to use research, advocacy, and try and. So my work is not going to be focused on mothers. Yes, I know mothers need a community. They need um, support, and they will get support. And even if they don't have support, they will thrive,
Yeah.
because they are so resilient. My work is around everybody else,
Mm.
because I think that we have like, very early on, when I started writing on LinkedIn, there's a pattern I noticed, that the algorithm connected with me with more mothers. All the comments are mothers validating mothers.
Mm.
There's no one from the outside who's engaging in the discussion.
Right.
And I'm like, why am I yeah, it's a community, it's a support system. I feel good. I know that, okay, I'm not alone in this. But how will that change?
Yeah.
We need allies.
Yeah.
And like, for instance, let me tell before I forget, and I'll come back to this. So, uh, ILO says that there is this 5R framework.
Yeah.
How will you deploy this framework?
Hmm.
How will you reduce unpaid work if there is no person to see it as work, if it's invisible?
Right.
Hmm? How
Right.
will you redistribute it if they don't find it worthy to support?
Right.
So these are the bigger questions around mindset.
Hmm.
How will we unlearn what has been taught to us that caregiving is feminine? It's a woman's job.
Hmm.
It is how it has been always been done. So these are
Hmm.
something we need to question.
Hmm.
We have policy, we have frameworks, we have very good laws.
Hmm.
But fundamentally, if our own, and it's not only the mindset of the people who are not living the experience, it's also the mother's mindset.
Absolutely. Yes.
Like, for instance, why have we not demanded organizations to redesign a role for us,
Hmm.
especially those in early caregiving? I
Hmm.
remember having a conversation with a DEI leader, and my first thought was, motherhood sits in gender right now.
Hmm.
It is folded in gender. It's a footnote in gender. It's a blind spot in gender.
Hmm.
Because we have not achieved gender equality. We are
Hmm.
still dealing with, female penalty.
Hmm.
And then comes motherhood penalty. So for a mother, it's double the penalty.
Absolutely.
You are paying the price for being a woman, and then you're paying the price for being a mother.
Yeah.
So I said, we need to look at it from a new lens.
Hmm.
We need to look at it like, because if you talk about postpartum and health of a mother, that sits under the health segment. If you talk
Absolutely.
about, the women participation in the workforce and the drop in that, that's again in the economy. So everything is scattered everywhere.
Right.
Then you talk about decent work, economic growth, you talk about all this, everything is scattered. And but for a mother, it's all in one body.
Body.
Yeah, yeah, the health is in one body, the income is in one body, everything happens for her at one point, but everything is working in silos. So then I was looking at something called matricentric feminism, which
Hmm.
is like, talking about the mother in the center and how we need to design around it. So there is already language for it.
Hmm.
You know, how do we look at unpaid labor?
Hmm.
How do we look at pay, the pay gap?
Hmm.
And they are real stories, like, I mean, there's research, no stories, they are research from Ashoka University that says that women who have breaks receive 49% lesser phone calls.
Hmm.
There's almost 7 million women who are re-entering the workforce. And imagine with breaks, how many of them? So what happens? Women are supposed to take low paying jobs.
Yeah.
Women are supposed to absorb jobs that give them that flexibility. And I now it all makes sense suddenly, why mothers are looking for desk jobs and jobs that pay less, because you can't you need flexibility.
Yeah.
And no one has designed flexible roles.
Yeah.
Every role that is designed is kept with one archetype in mind,
Yeah.
which is the uninterrupted worker.
Yeah.
And whose work is mostly uninterrupted? It's the male, dominant male gender,
Yeah.
because women are the backbone
Hmm.
of most of the work making. Women are the enablers for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not, the entire movement, when I say mother, the mother movement, in fact, one of the mother was like worried. She's like, I don't want to be a part of any movement. I'm like, no, it's a radical thought, but it's not rebellious.
Yeah.
We are coming in from empathy to
Yeah.
make even make every gender aware of what is going on in a woman's body, And what is it's not wrap it up in poetry, not romanticize motherhood, but talk about the realities.
Mm, mm, mm.
So I think most of my work stems foundationally on the mindset, like uh, trying uh, to surface biases in real time with these reflection workshops.
Yeah.
Like I remember I conducted an activity, and it was a mixed group, not only like, no parents, non-parents, men, unmarried men, fathers. So it was like to define your mother in 5 words.
Mm,
And then we gotten the answers, and all of that were in an emotional language,
mm,
like, from a care aspect. Then
mm,
when I flipped the question and asked, describe your mama in a professional setting,
mm,
and if she has never worked, imagine your house as an entity.
mm,
And then the language changed to capability, and the
mm.
kind of words and the kind of answers that I received were like, tapping into, someone said she is super smart,
Mm,
like, she can calculate so quickly.
mm,
And they are not only those words that, uh, the caring, loving. So the shift from care to capability was right unfolding in front of their eyes. And
right.
there are a lot of people who said, I've never even realized
Mm,
that, I never even saw these traits of my mummy, despite the fact knowing that they are in her.
mm.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think a lot of it is even our, a lot of things is our unconscious biases. Everybody has biases.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and then imagine, I was just, somebody was telling me in HR, they were a part of this workshop. And then she said, every time a new mother would interview, you'd be like, how would you manage as a woman? You understand the logistics. And she would be like, we are more keen on not hiring new mothers.
Mm,
So I told her, like, if you look beyond that that care, like,
mm.
because the definition of a mother for a lot of us is sacrificing,
Yeah.
nurturing, caring, loving, putting everyone first. But if you look beyond and you give it professional language, you will see that it is organized,
Mm.
getting the
Multitasking.
task done,
Yeah.
multitasking, creative,
Mm.
even empathetic is now not a soft skill anymore.
Yeah.
So this language, so imagine as a hiring manager, if I have these biases about mothers projecting from my own experience, and then if I'm supposed to hire someone who's a new mother, my bias will be projected onto her, and I will reject the
Absolutely.
candidate.
Yes.
So that's why it's important that we at least, if you're not doing anything about it also, that's a choice, but we be aware and
Mm.
informed that these are our biases.
Yeah.
So most of my work under reflection is to surface these unconscious biases and be aware of them,
Yeah.
and to see mothers as literally, like, I've never seen more efficient and like, I've seen a lot of posts in which mothers talk, and we know it's true. We can do much more. And the fact that we have a child makes it all the more, um, it's not all the more difficult. In fact, we can do it even more efficiently. We
Yeah.
can multitask better.
Yeah.
We are purpose driven now. If we
Yeah.
have 10 hours in a day, and we know 8 hours go to a kid, we know we have only 2 hours to deal with, so we
Yeah.
have to have focused work. And
Yeah.
we can't literally, so our, um, the way we handle everything, the everything is enhanced, I would say.
Yeah.
Like our knowledge, our, because you have to survive this phase.
Yeah. And there
And
is no room for dilly-dallying anymore. There is no
absolutely,
room
absolutely,
for,
there's no room. It's
yeah.
all serious, it's all serious stuff, it's all getting the work done.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so much of your work hinges on, discomfort and,
Mm.
challenges and, bringing out those, surfacing those biases and all of that. But is there anything that, within your reflections and within your work that brings you unexpected comfort that, okay, this is also
Mm.
there?
So uh, I think most of until now, whatever work I did, now there was a discovery
Hmm.
which has literally made me empathetic towards a lot of people. Like one example I'll share. There are a few things I want to share. First example was, I remember I wanted to mention this earlier, but I lost track. So when I used to debate online, and my partner would see me and be like, "Calm down, relax. You don't have to. Not all battles are meant to be fought." I'm like, "No, I have to put my point across."
Hmm.
And then I remember we were talking about motherhood penalty and fatherhood premium. And he looks at me, he's like, "Why have you become so negative?" I'm like, "What are you saying?" He thought I invented these terms. I'm like, "No, I will not take that credit." He's
Yeah.
like, "What is fatherhood premium?" I said, "Google right
Yeah.
now."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh my God, there's something called fatherhood premium." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yes, for what mothers are penalized, the exact same thing fathers are provided, are rewarded for.
Yeah.
So if mothers have a pay gap, if mothers do not get, a 49% of the mothers who are re-entering the workforce do not get a call back, men are seen as much more committed and stable.
Yeah.
Give that man a job because he's a family man."
Yeah.
So that is the fatherhood premium I was trying to, and he was shocked. He
Mm.
was like, he didn't know that these terms are there.
Yeah.
And a lot of, that is one example. Another is, like in these quiet reflections where I realize that that a lot of men also, and like, there's an unmarried friend of mine, colleague. I remember I invited her to one of these reflection circles, and she was like, "I don't think I'm the right person for this."
Mm.
And again, I'm like, "No, you are. What makes you think so?" She's like, "Because I'm not a mother."
Mm.
I'm like, "But who's making the decisions? Who is sitting in organizations? Who is
Yeah.
making that decisions on pay, promotion, rewards?"
Mm.
It's not mothers, because if you see data, 73% of the women drop from the workforce in India after giving birth. And that number keeps going down. And then you'll see that only those mothers who return, only 16% move into leadership roles.
Wow.
So imagine, when we are talking about those 16% of mothers in leadership roles, they are the ones deciding, and that is such a small number
Yeah.
to represent.
Yeah.
And imagine the fact that, when you're at your peak in your profession, that's when motherhood hits you.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people, this journey is so transformational that a lot of people do not have that support to, they just go on with life. That's why you hear advices like, "It gets better."
Mm.
And there's a rage window. I was thinking about this. There's a rage window, especially in the first year or two of motherhood. And that's when you're fueled with this energy to do something about it. How is this? This is not normal. The
Yeah.
mattresses years, you're fueled. You're like, "No, this is not what it is."
Yeah.
And then you listen to other mothers telling you, "Give yourself some grace, be kind to yourself, enjoy this phase," you know. And it's good. It's well intentioned.
Yeah.
They mean well, but I'm like, if I'm not doing something that ties me to who I was before and which gave me joy, how can I be a better parent when I go to mother my child?
Yeah.
That's going to suck all my energy out, and I'm going to be frustrated because
Yeah.
I don't have any channel to feel good, to feel creative.
Yeah.
I don't have any outlet to feel like myself. And so there's this rage window, and a lot of older mothers, if you see, I've observed this, they are like now in that phase that okay, kids are not in their nest anymore, empty nesters, and they're like, it gets easier. Why should I wait for 2 decades to make my life easy?
Yeah.
You know, so this is the kind of advice that we keep receiving. Like, when I early on I wanted to build something, I have, people who I love and who I trust, they were like, now take a break. Don't do anything right now. Focus on the baby. Focus on the baby. Like, things like that. So there was this revelation that, a lot of mothers just tell you, wait it out.
Yeah.
Things will get better.
Yeah.
That's why the system doesn't change. That's why we don't demand for role redesign.
Yeah.
That's why we don't demand for support, because we are like, okay, it's just one more year. Like, we'll get done with it.
Yeah.
Once the baby starts going to school, we'll have time,
Yeah.
because we are absorbing that into our bodies, into our time, into our energy. We are the ones, our mothers are the ones who are taking everything upon themselves.
Yeah.
And that question should be why?
Mm.
Why do you want to wait until your child is in school?
Mm.
So, a lot of my work is advocacy. It's about research also. I want to, conduct research and have, um, and then build my work on that.
Yeah.
And another important point would be preparedness
Mm.
of parenthood.
Mm.
Like, a lot of people, even though they you can't even be deeply connected to your mother and know what her journey was. So,
Yeah.
let alone reading a book and knowing about motherhood. Yeah, it is a good start, no doubt.
Yeah.
But you need to understand it from, practical examples,
Yeah.
like how your time is renegotiated, how your life is turned upside down. So I think preparedness is something, uh, also we should work on. Like,
Yeah.
and a lot of women now are choosing not to get married anyway.
Yeah.
There's this Stanley Morgan's research which says that I think 40 or 46% of women by 2030 will be single and childless.
Wow.
So why do you think in the last 2 years the care economy is talking about these big think tanks and these big organizations are talking about care economy?
Mm.
It's not that they became kinder to mothers. It's because of aging population, the fertility rates dropping. It's because of burnout. It's because of the women exiting the workforce.
Mm.
So these are all the reasons contributing that, now they have to look, because now women are questioning this. They are making rational decisions to all these because they are seeing their mothers, they are seeing their sisters. They are seeing how this unpaid uh, work plus child care with no support, no infrastructure, it's not easy. And, people, women are learning they are making rational choices right now.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah. So this
Yeah.
is the direction we are heading. So I think preparedness is essential for both parents, so they can really, understand what is in the journey.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
ideally, the my or outrageous goal is to start, like, like how these certifications to certify organizations like Great Place for Mothers, like,
Yeah.
to have these
Yeah.
baselines, to do research, to so some sort of measurement, but not as a perk.
Right.
Maternity leave is a perk. No, serious stuff like role redesign, embed care into a structure, organization structure.
Yeah.
Stop making women. I know it might sound outrageous, audacious, because 100 years back, sports, women were not allowed in sports.
Yeah.
But today, I think in this Olympics, we attained gender parity. So
Mm.
we have come a long way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it might sound outrageous right now, it might sound unbelievable right now, but that's the work of the mother movement in the long haul.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I want our budgets to have care infrastructure. Like, are we ready to build care, like how we build roads, how we build power?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Mm. Did you catch that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think that is what I want to end with. Are we ready to build care?
Hmm. Hmm.
Like how we build roads, how we build power, how we include it in budgets, in standards, and all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Beautiful. Beautiful. And you know what? Like you are speaking of support, you're speaking of care, and I want to come back to your life and like your parenting journey. In this, has there been a kind of support that has shown up for you in ways you didn't expect? Like, oh my God,
yeah,
I have this kind of support?
I think it's the stories of other mothers who are going through the same thing now, that, like, uh, when I connect, and that to cross borders, like, there are so many people I've interacted with. So there's this universal truth, and then you listen to mothers from, say, Afghanistan, someone from Bangladesh, and someone from a country like Denmark, somebody who has good childcare policies, and someone like the best and the challenging, those who have it in all ways, good,
Hmm.
bad, ugly, child rearing, child care, and then everybody, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
This is the universal truth. It is something that has been normalized because women have absorbed it,
Yeah.
absorbed the cost, absorbed everything, without, because they're like, it's my duty, who else would do it? I
Yeah.
think that needs to be challenged,
Yeah.
the normalization na? So this is the support that I received, that I didn't expect. Like, I would see CEOs, I would see really directors, and I would see, in fact, my house help too. There's so much I learned from her. She's carrying the burden of paid and unpaid labor, which is the same domestic work
Yeah.
throughout her life,
Yeah.
and my heart goes out to her. I'm like, how do you even manage to do that? And
Yeah.
there's a pain, a sadness, and there are things you don't oversee. Like, in fact, I think we are running out of time.
That's okay. Yeah.
There's a story, like, there's this lady who wanted work. Her husband is a alcoholic, so she wanted work, and she came with two kids, one 4-year old, another one just barely 2 years. And she came, she's like, I want to work, I really need a job desperately, my husband is like this. And she came the next day, and she's working her son, she left her kids outside, and she began washing the utensils, and then the younger child starts crying, because it's a new place, it's not familiar, she doesn't have any support. So she brings in the child, and one on her hip she has a child, and she's washing the utensils, and the son is like, why did you leave me alone? He's yelling.
Hmm.
And the kids are not leaving her, she wants to work, she doesn't have any support system, even if she leaves them in a safe space. So where, like, it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And the society will judge her, will judge her for being a bad mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put your kids first, they will not judge, they will not see through her pain. Only a mother will look at her,
Yeah.
only a mother. So
Yeah.
even if I was unmarried, no, I would still look at the pain of the child. I
Yeah.
will not look at the mother. I
Yeah.
have to be on the inside to understand, oh my God, I know what you're going through.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So I think there's a lot that needs to be changed, and there is a lot of support. There are a lot of communities. There are a lot of beautiful people who are building amazing things in this space, and the narrative is changing. Everything
Yeah.
is changing, and probably 10 years from now, 100 years from now, it will not remain folded in gender.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about having a mother's eye to spot these things and to recognize and to acknowledge these things. So that brings me to my last question for you for today. If you could sit across from your pre-parent self, pre-mother self, what would
Okay.
you want her to know?
Uh, hmm. I would prepare myself better
Hmm.
for everything, the whole journey, the pregnancy, postpartum, and the entire birthing experience.
Right.
Yeah. Like I don't know, like I'm saying prepare myself, but we don't know.
Yeah.
This is that uh, this is that rabbit hole.
Hmm.
You can, it's like you get more and more information from the people you trust, also from your circle of wisdom, from your community. But when you're in it,
Yeah.
it's something, it's only your experience,
Yeah.
even though it happens and it's probably happened to many people similarly. It's just your experience.
Yeah.
So if I had the opportunity and if I could foresee the future, I would tell myself the experience exactly the way it is, which is not which is not possible.
Yeah.
uh, but if not, I think there's this is the only thing that I would, because most of the hand downs that I've got from my friend and everything have been very helpful, so far.
Hmm.
And the kind of parenting tips and tools that I have, mostly from trustworthy people, are, it's a learning. And that's the beauty of it, when you attach a lot of do's and don'ts. Like I every day I'm allowing my child to teach me.
Yeah.
I don't know. She's teaching me.
Yeah.
And the days that it gets very hard, I pause and I'm like, okay, you know, I have to change something about myself. Or if I can't do it, then I ask for help.
Yeah.
But I don't have very rigid rules around, I want you to do this,
Hmm.
because I realized it takes out my energy. And I didn't try this, but my friend told me, and I've seen firsthand a lot of people do. And so I want to enjoy this phase. At the same time, I want to give grace to myself, which means that I don't blame myself for not doing the I am going to mess up a lot of things
Yeah. Yeah.
as a parent. I'm just prepared for that, thankfully. That is what, if my friend teaches me. There was a time that she fell, and I was she hurt her lip because she just got two tooths, and she was bleeding. My daughter was bleeding, and I was panicking, pacing. I called my friend, and she's like, it's okay. Relax. She's going to fall. She's going to get many more bruises. How deep is it? Does it need medical assistance? And I'm like, no, no, it's like, chill. It happens.
Yeah.
The first times are always, there's so much of emotion and intensity and fear, and you don't know. So I think I have that preparedness for, is it preparedness or preparedness? I
I
don't know.
have no idea.
Uh,
Whatever we
I don't
decide to
even know if
call
I'm
it.
using a right word. So I just want to say that preparing for motherhood has been better because I have the wisdom and support. Yeah, and it's like it's like I don't want to take it seriously. Like, I am
Yeah.
not going to give you sugar.
Yeah.
I am not going to. I know, I respect. See, I don't want to sound very shallow by a lot of mothers are putting in a lot of effort, and I've seen, but it shouldn't come at the cost of you being miserable.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you are parenting your kid in a way that is enriching your life and easy on you and people around you and your child, there's so much of respect, reverence, and um, you know pride that I have for mothers. But I've seen people, like, who do it, like, and who are so drained out,
Yeah.
and they are like this rule book somebody has given them and they are following.
Hmm.
So that, again, that's another thing altogether, with the entire boom of the parenting as a commercialization of parenting,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there are a lot of these courses also,
Yeah.
that are for mothers. You want to be a better mother, you want to be a ambitious mother, you want to. I'm good, like if somebody needs that, but I will not sell it in that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
I don't want to see mothers as that. I want to change the system. I
Yeah.
want to change system. When I say I want to change how people think about motherhood, and
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything for motherhood in the way, in a sense that I don't want to say that there's something that I want to change in you, because you
Yeah.
are amazing. So, and because I have a lot of other assignments also going on, I
Mm.
have commitments, consulting work, which I enjoy.
Yeah.
And this is again, like, I have so many things always going on. And that is who I am. I am ambitious. I want to do everything together. And that's
Yeah.
what I want to tell mothers. Don't wait until your kid is going to school. What you love, what you're passionate about, take out few hours for yourself. You will be present for your daughter. You will turn out as a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
So if anyone tells you wait it out, no, that time is going to pass. You're going to get bitter and frustrated itself
Yeah.
at the 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
So, and then it's going to be difficult. Yeah,
Yeah.
too many times. you have,
Yeah.
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 So yeah, I enjoyed this conversation, Neha.
Same. Thank you for sharing this phase of your life with such openness and honesty. And thank you for reminding us that early parenthood doesn't have to look a certain way or to be meaningful. It just has to be real. Thank you for giving us your time, Tasha. I really, really enjoyed our conversation.
Same here, Neha. Same here. Thank you. I, yeah, I'll stay in touch with you, and
Yeah.
yeah, more
Yeah.
power to you, and amazing things. You do amazing work bringing stories of mothers and their journeys, and I I'm happy that I was a small part of it.
Thank you. And to everyone listening, if this conversation resonated with you, if it made you feel seen or steadied, please share it with someone who might need it. Follow Parenthood, leave us a review if you can, and keep these conversations going in your homes, your friendships, and within yourselves. Until next time, this is Neha Garg signing off. Bye bye.